All right, welcome to JonBownePolitix number 28. It's number 28, right? Yep, on 1/8/2020, the day after the madness of the Iranian missile attack, which turned into a gigantic propaganda storm, as you can tell from this clip from MSNBC.
We're just getting reports now that a second wave of rocket attacks have been launched from Iran. The IRGC was saying that Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader of this country, was in the control center coordinating these attacks. This bit I'm not sure about, but the Iran state media is claiming that 30 U.S. soldiers have been killed in this attack. Now, this is not confirmed. This is just coming from Iranian media, but we have just stepped over the precipice, Chris. We have entered a very unpredictable time. We have to see what the response is going to be from the United States.
So there you have it. The Iranian news agency, utilizing the MSNBC Tehran media chief to get their propaganda across to the United States. 30 military killed, he said, according to the Iranian news agency. There was nobody killed. The only thing that happened that was incredibly bizarre after that missile attack was a plane full of Ukrainians, could be Americans, we still have to suss it out, but a plane full of people leaving Tehran, and the plane, which they will not release the black box to give us the details of what went down, exploded. Now, a missile may have taken it out. It may have gone into the airspace that was locked down. Who can tell? But that's being covered up. That's not being talked about on the mainstream media. No one's going to get to the bottom of that. But they will bring you, in the middle of a storm of missiles from a very hurt Iran, they will bring you their propaganda, but they won't get to the bottom of what actually happened. That is not good, because that means if we do get into some kind of altercation with Iran or the Iraqis, we can't rely on the media anymore to find out exactly what's happening. That's not good. And we, of course, aren't out of the woods yet. A report that went up on Drudge Report, smack dab in the middle, from Paul Joseph Watson, reminding the people, the public, the people that need to know, that are actually could be in danger. Of course, they don't want to cause a panic, that Hezbollah has been in the United States for quite some time now. Well, I took that report and expanded it. Here we go. The fiery end to Quds Force leader Qasem Soleimani at the Baghdad airport set off a global alarm. The State Department urged U.S. citizens to leave Iraq immediately after Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei telegraphed further action, claiming harsh revenge awaits the criminals involved. Westerners are urged to leave and/or be aware of anywhere Hezbollah has stretched its tentacles, which is as far-flung as North and South America to Asia.
There's always risk of cyber attacks. The Iranians have a deep and complex cyber capability, to be sure. Know that we've certainly considered that risk. Your point about risk here in the United States is real, too.
A 2019 Foreign Policy article addressing the presence of Hezbollah agents operating in the United States wrote, following Karani and Debek's arrests, the director of the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center said in October 2017, it's our assessment that Hezbollah is determined to give itself a potential homeland option as a critical component of its terrorism playbook. Ali Karani and Samer El Debek were arrested in 2017 in New York and Michigan and charged with providing material support to Hezbollah's Islamic Jihad organization. The criminal complaint against Karani described his IJO role as that of a sleeper. He and other undercover operatives were tasked to maintain ostensibly normal lives but could be activated and tasked to conducting IJO operations. According to the complaint, Karani acquired weapons in the United States to bolster IJO operations, scouted information about security weaknesses at New York airports, and gathered surveillance on numerous U.S. military and law enforcement buildings in Manhattan and Brooklyn. According to the Justice Department, Debek traveled to Panama twice for Hezbollah, where he located the U.S. and Israeli embassies, gathered information about the security operations and weaknesses of the construction of the Panama Canal, and pinpointed hardware stores where explosive materials could be bought. Between 2008 and 2014, Debek traveled from the United States to Lebanon to receive military training from Hezbollah, where he was trained in the creation and handling of explosives and explosive devices.
37-year-old Samer El-Debek is said to have been on Hezbollah's payroll for the better part of 10 years. His arrest was announced today, 1 week after FBI agents raided this Dearborn home, which is connected to today's announcement. The FBI describes El-Debek as an expert in bomb making, saying he had a high degree of technical sophistication when it comes to explosives, receiving training in the use of rocket-propelled grenade launchers.
Hezbollah has been operating within the United States since at least the early 1990s, when Hezbollah cell leader Youssef Hammoud used a forged travel visa to enter New York City via Venezuela. Hammoud relocated to Charlotte, North Carolina.
It was 2002 when a trial here at the federal courthouse revealed there was a cell of Hezbollah terrorists operating in Charlotte. It was shocking then. Even more surprising now that terrorism officials say Hezbollah is still here.
Are you currently investigating Hezbollah cells in North Carolina?
Yes. Michael Resnick is in charge of the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force for North Carolina.
They have a violent capability. They're a military organization, as demonstrated as what's happening in southern Lebanon right now.
And as evidenced by what happened in Charlotte in 2002, Hezbollah has roots in the Carolinas. Mohammed Hammoud and his brother convicted in Charlotte of smuggling cigarettes and then funneling the money to Hezbollah. Prosecutors said they were the head of a secret Hezbollah cell.
This was the real deal here. This wasn't just wannabes or hangers-on. We had a real terrorist cell here in Charlotte.
Recently, former CIA operations officer Sam Faddis told the Daily Mail that Hezbollah sleeper cells were hiding in the U.S. and potentially had targets in its sights. It is more than possible that Hezbollah has sleeper cells in the United States ready to strike, he said. Based on what we know, we must assume they do and that they can hit targets on U.S. soil at any time without warning. Former President Barack Obama has his fingerprints all over the sabotage of the Trump administration and ultimately the future of the United States. From the allegations of the wiretapping of Trump's phones during the 2016 campaign to the ongoing details of the Barr Durham investigation, Barack Obama and his Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, just keep the hits coming.
It did not start with Donald Trump. He is a symptom, not the cause.
Lo and behold, the point man behind the siege on the American embassy in Iraq, Hadi al-Amiri, was hosted in the Oval Office by President Obama in 2011. According to the Daily Mail, Amiri is head of the Badr Corps, an Iranian vassal which, despite fighting alongside the U.S. against ISIS in 2014 and 2015, has received funding and arms from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard, a designated terror group. President Trump had stirred a hornet's nest after he ordered U.S. Air Force jets to decimate Hezbollah bases and 25 were killed. And now the smoke is clearing on the propagandized hit job on the American embassy in Iraq. The sniveling cowards in the media want another Benghazi, and what they got was a real-time response from the commander-in-chief.
They came immediately, and it's in great shape. As you know, this will not be a Benghazi. Benghazi should never have happened. The Iranian regime's aggression in the region, including the use of proxy fighters to destabilize its neighbors, must end, and it must end now.
Now the left, led by the rhetoric of Joe Biden and Ilhan Omar, are showing their hand as the bulwark of national security that they are. As Biden called the bold action that of throwing a stick of dynamite into a tinderbox, and Omar vowed to step in and stop Trump. Of course, the truth didn't slow down the Mockingbird media's love affair with terrorists. As Steve Watson writes, the leftist media in the U.S. started off 2020 with a cacophony of fake news by labeling Hezbollah terrorists who attempted to storm the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad as protesters. The pictures from the mob attack clearly show that it was led by members of Tehran's militia units in Iraq, which have been absorbed into the Iraqi security forces. John Kerry's underhanded violation of the foreign diplomacy of the executive office is a sobering example of the left's true danger to our national security.
You know, John Kerry speaks to him a lot. John Kerry tells them not to call. That's a violation of the Logan Act. And frankly, he should be prosecuted on that. But my people don't want to do anything that's... Only the Democrats do that kind of stuff, you know? If it were the opposite way, they'd prosecute him under the Logan Act.
While Obama's ties to the Muslim Brotherhood during the toppling of regimes in North Africa is indisputable.
And what I indicated tonight to President Mubarak is my belief that an orderly transition must be meaningful, it must be peaceful, and it must begin now. Furthermore, the process must include a broad spectrum of Egyptian voices and opposition parties.
The most important thing for me is to have real friendship between the Egyptians and the Americans.
So what does that mean? What does that mean?
Yeah, what that means is mutual, balanced relationships.
Jubilation erupting on Tahrir Square as the news spread that President Morsi had been deposed. Yet another Egyptian leader taken down by the people on this now iconic square.
Those ties to Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood President Mohamed Morsi snaked a path to an Iran that Obama had generously rewarded for a nuclear disarmament deal that failed. Where will Obama and Hillary's signature of sabotage appear next? And how much of the Iranian conflict is being driven by their influence? Okay, so here we are days later, and of course Pelosi and her party of never-ending opposition are pushing the narrative that what Trump did was basically a war crime, and how dare he go above and beyond the heads of their reigning party and take out a terrorist such as Soleimani. You know, Obama would have never have done. Oh wait, Obama did that 2,800 times. Oh, thank you, Washington Times. Here we go from the Washington Times. U.S. forces have now surpassed 2,800 strikes against targets in Iraq and Syria under President Obama's war against the Islamic State. This from back in April 27th of 2015. As all part of a conflict Congress has yet to specifically authorize, and amid worries lawmakers will never act. From the Washington Times. Of course, I remember one of those drone attacks took out a wedding party, a Pakistan wedding party. Now, that was at the very end of Bush Jr.'s tenure, and Obama had taken over and was asked by Hamid Karzai, the Afghan president at the time, that Obama do something to end the civilian deaths resulting from all of these drone attacks. And Obama went on and did 2,800 attacks anyway. So there you have it. Civilian deaths, no problem. Killing an Iranian terrorist leader responsible for hundreds of American deaths and thousands of his own people's deaths. That ain't gonna fly, according to the Democrats. You know who you are. You're probably not listening. Anyway, we have much to celebrate. Again, from the Washington Times. Thank you, Washington Times. And this came out on January 7th, 2020. A watchdog group named Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Tuesday its Porker of the Year for 2019, citing her sponsorship of the costly Green New Deal proposal. Citizens Against Government Waste President Tom Schatz said the New York Democrat received 54% in the group's online poll, easily beating out Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, who garnered 25%, and four other candidates. The results are not surprising, as Representative Ocasio-Cortez's $93 trillion proposal exemplifies Congress's failure to protect the taxpayers' hard-earned money, Mr. Schatz said. For pushing a radical plan that would destroy the American economy, Representative Ocasio-Cortez deserves the distinction of 2019 Porker of the Year. Well, she may not be able to keep that award in her office for very much longer. I'll explain.
This is a quality of life issue.
Lucky for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the news has been a little heavy over the past few days, enough to distract her from her own impending doom. AOC recently learned that her seat may be squeezed out due to the open border policies she supports. As the city reported, building on data and analysis by the Texas Tribune suggests Ocasio-Cortez's district could be particularly vulnerable to undercount because a little over a quarter of those living there are non-citizens. That's a higher percentage than any other congressional district in the state. A census undercount in Ocasio-Cortez's district and elsewhere in the state could lead to the elimination of congressional districts, potentially setting off politically charged redistricting battles. New York already is on track to lose up to 2 congressional seats during reapportionment due to population decline and slower rate of growth, according to a December report by Election Data Services. The citizenship question President Trump wanted added to the census was shot down by the Supreme Court. As a result, President Trump tasked the Department of Homeland Security to share government records from its databases to help the Census Bureau produce data about the U.S. citizenship status of every person living in the country. All U.S. states that don't accurately complete the 2020 census could, of course, face the loss of congressional seats and billions of federal dollars. The San Francisco Chronicle reports an analysis of the preliminary estimates released by the U.S. Census Bureau showed that California was one of 10 states likely to lose a congressional seat. Texas, which now has 36 representatives in the U.S. House, second behind California, is expected to gain at least 3 seats. Florida is on track to gain 2. The political impact of reapportionment extends beyond Congress to presidential elections. Each state's electoral college represents the sum of its House and Senate seats. But that still hasn't stopped the Democrats from handing our elections over to non-citizens.
A groundbreaking release from the Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. His office found nearly 95,000 people registered to vote, but not U.S. citizens.
In Maryland, already there are a number of smaller communities that already have elections where non-citizens can do the voting.
Kind of discriminatory to me. Well, you're not letting American homeless people vote, but you are letting illegal aliens vote?
On the steps of City Hall, a historic day. For the first time, non-citizen parents can register to vote for school board elections in San Francisco.
We know for sure now that non-citizens are voting. The question is how many and how big of an issue it is.
Do you think they actually cast ballots?
I mean, we think that's very likely that we've had non-citizens cast ballots. We had that in Tarrant County. We prosecuted somebody that had done that and they ended up in prison for 8 years.
I respect the law.
Rosa Ortega is the one who got 8 years, a green card holder who voted for Republicans but told a judge she didn't understand she could not cast a ballot.
This review found that 385 non-citizens were registered to vote in Ohio, and of those, 82 had cast at least one ballot in an election in Ohio.
Secretary of State's office says that it has identified now 95,000 people registered to vote with matching DPS records of non-citizens.
You know, I get the popular mythology among Democrats that there's no such thing as voter fraud. I would tell you there's not as much voter fraud as some Republicans think, but there's a lot more than Democrats think.
If AOC loses her district to her own United Nations brainwashing, it would occur as we get closer to the 2022 midterm elections. Oh, you don't have to tell me. I realize that I'm probably a racist scumbag for even bringing up the fact that non-citizens could have the ability to vote. As we go forward, as a country, as a republic, as a wait a minute, I guess that wouldn't be the case anymore, would it? All right, I take all that back. I'm not racist or a scumbag, but I do have a brain between my ears, and I tend to use it every once in a while, and I guess for that I'm guilty. Speaking of brains between their ears, the Golden Globes, what a travesty, what a mockery of all that is American culture. What is the Golden Globes anyway? Apparently it's just a party It's just an excuse for a party before the Academy Awards, which, again, will have no host. I guess they're afraid to have a host for the Oscars now, but the Golden Globes are just an excuse for Hollywood to party. And, I brought up brain between the ears. It takes a brain to pretend that you're somebody else, to pretend that the camera isn't on you while you're getting very emotional. But that doesn't mean by any means that you're more important than Billy Joe driving the tractor in Kansas, or any smarter. You just happen to have a plastic camera aimed at you, and you're broadcast to millions of people, and when you go to the grocery store, maybe your face is plastered all over some National Enquirer spread or whatever, and they're arguing whether or not you're dating this person or that person or what's going on in your life. I'll give you the skinny on this, celebrities, especially nowadays, Hollywood celebrities. Nobody cares. We're sick and tired of it. It's just like it's like French fries. It's like old French fries that you get at McDonald's. You ordered them, they're there, but are you going to eat them? No, you're probably going to throw them in the trash. That's what modern day Hollywood celebrities are like. They're like the old French fries that you get at McDonald's. And Ricky Gervais is now being lauded as a hero. Here at the beginning of 2020, the gloves are off. The culture wars have begun, and I love it. I am loving it. Speaking of McDonald's, I guess I'm getting hungry. But before I play this report, I want to tell everybody out there, especially you Spinal Tap fans, that you need to check out a show that Ricky Gervais did for Netflix. It's called David Brent, Life on the Road, and you want to see how funny this guy is. Check that out. Without any further ado, here's an in-depth report on the slime oozing out of your television and your local movie theater screen.
Pleased to know this is the last time I'm hosting these awards, so I don't care anymore.
The tongue lashing the room full of self-righteous, complacent narcissists received at the Golden Globes resulted in an aftermath that says it all.
He said everything he ever wanted to say to that self-obsessed pile of pulsating flesh known as Hollywood.
It must have been his last time hosting, because he's like, I'm just going to put it all out there. And it was hilarious, because a lot of people were like, oh, I don't know if I should laugh, if I should cringe, but I found it funny.
I was like, thank you. Thank you, Ricky.
Ricky Gervais was fantastic as the host. I mean, he's the greatest.
Aside from the anger in the leftist Mockingbird media, everyone joyfully celebrated Ricky Gervais's smackdown of celebrities, targeting their constant grandstanding based on their plastic privilege.
Apple roared into the TV game with a morning show, a superb drama about the importance of dignity and doing the right thing, made by a company that runs sweatshops in China. So, well, you say you're woke, but the companies you work for, I mean, unbelievable. Apple, Amazon, Disney. If ISIS started a streaming service, you'd call your agent, wouldn't you? So, if you do win an award tonight, don't use it as a platform to make a political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So, if you win, right, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and...
That's right, Hollywood. America loathes you.
He obviously didn't kill himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up. I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
Because we all know that beyond the Weinstein casting couch and Epstein's Lolita Express lie unspeakable acts that tear at the fabric of American providence. Hollywood's secret days of sexually preying on children have gone from conspiracy to horrible truth in 2020.
If you read the book, you'll be like, transitioning from Disney to this was easy. I don't know, getting molested from your 6 to your 14 seems like way harder circumstances, or being physically abused all the time. The type of mistreatment that I was still dealing with at that time, that everyone around me saw and did nothing.
Disney has cornered the market on all things catering to America's youth. Among the Disney Industrial Entertainment Complex are untouchable filth like Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn, who nearly derailed his movie franchise with a barrage of pedophilic tweets. But the outrage concerning Disney's open secret is bubbling to the surface.
This started Ricky being around all of these people a lot. He was around.
Yeah, he was around all these people that are now known, you know, in this pedophile ring of child molesters. He was around them regularly.
Disney child star Ricky Garcia filed a lawsuit in Los Angeles Superior Court in which they named Ricky Garcia's ex-manager Joby Hart, 37, Joby's Hot Rocks media business partners Paul Cohen and Sherry Anderson Thomas, talent agency APA, former AP agent Tyler Grasham, and manager Nils Larson, currently employed by Management 360, alleging that from the age of 12 years old, Ricky was groomed, sexually abused, and raped on a weekly basis, and that Joby Hart passed him around as a sexual plaything to other powerful pedophiles throughout the business. Relating a typical day in her son's life, Tammy Garcia explained, "This was a Disney party after a Disney concert filled with underage Disney stars being plied with alcohol openly, where child molestation was going on openly, brazenly, all under the watchful, knowing eye of Disney employees. And none of it seemed to be a problem, as no consequences resulted. No one, it seems, was looking out for or concerned about the safety and well-being of the kids in the slightest way." This is the Hollywood that Gervais was spraying venom on.
Talking of all you perverts, it was a big year for paedophile movies. Surviving R. Kelly, Leaving Neverland, Two Popes. Shut up. I don't care.
And no one seemed to have any problem with giving minors copious amounts of alcohol.
No, because looking back, that's regular. That's what goes on in Hollywood.
These agents of child trafficking that simultaneously brainwash the future generations of America are not untouchable. If there is to be a revolution that restores our American values, it must begin in the tiny hamlet of hell known as Hollywood. So there you have it. We are living in a giant STD of a culture, and it needs to be washed clean. If you did get Disney Plus, you might want to reconsider. That also goes for Netflix, unfortunately. I mean, they all need to be taught a lesson, don't they? That it's us that are ultimately pulling the strings on their mountains of money. Well, that's going to do it for JonBownePolitix number 28, the week of 1/8/2020. Of course, Trump this week dueled with the Iranians, apparently pulled back, but who knows? The Iranians are like Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction. They're obsessed with America. They love hating America. So there's no telling. It's only a matter of time before another shoe drops. But that's going to do it for JonBownePolitix this week. You can check out podcastcadet.com. You can find me at dailynewscollective.com and sign up over there and check it out. It's the Poor Man's Drudge Report. We'll see you next week.